Okay. All been warned, you're being recorded now. Okay. All right. One more minute. And then as I see folks, so just like just now, we just had one more person joining. Hi, good afternoon. All right. It is 2:02. Darlene, I'm gonna go ahead and start. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I know some of you have been staring at me for several minutes now, which I apologize for, but I want to welcome everyone to What is Your Career Path 2026. This is a panel event put on by Buckles Lamp Committee. So if you're unfamiliar with Buckles and/or the Lamp Committee, so Buckles is a library consortium in Northern New Jersey that consists of 78 libraries. And we have a strong emphasis on shared professional development. And a lot of that is accomplished through committee work. And this particular committee, LAMP, sorry, I'm admitting people while I'm speaking, so just pardon me. LAMP stands for Library Administration, Management, and Personnel, and we do love an acronym here, so LAMP is a nice, neat way to say it. And we focus mostly on training for directors and managers, but we also do events for mid-level supervisors and all staff. And this is one of our events that's open to everyone. We think it's a great opportunity for people to hear about different positions in libraries or library adjacent organizations and how folks ended up in their positions, to see different career paths, some more traditional, some less traditional. I am lucky enough to be joined by my beautiful, talented, incredibly intelligent co-chair, Catherine, who's at the Upper Saddle River Library. And my name is Tara Cooper. I'm the director of the Johnson Public Library in Hackensack. We're also joined by other members of the LAMP committee. I'm probably going to miss people, so just unmute yourself and say hi if you're a member of the LAMP committee so I don't miss you. And also Darlene, who is our liaison at the Buckles office, who keeps us on task. She's our task mistress. That's what I'll call her today. And she got this event all neatly tucked away and squared away for us to make sure that we can bring you the best possible content today. So this session is being recorded. I just want to give everyone a heads up about that. We're joined by four awesome panelists, and I'll thank them and introduce them one by one in a moment. Just some housekeeping things. We will be asking our panelists some general questions first, and then questions that y'all submitted in advance. If we have time at the end, we will be accepting additional questions in the chat box. If you want to ask a question anonymously, you're going to send a direct message to Catherine, and she will be able to read that and won't be part of the recording. So if you need to ask like a spicy question, you're going to ask Catherine. Not too spicy, but anything that you don't want to be connected to. And Catherine's also going to keep an eye in general on the chat box to make sure that I don't miss anything. And we're going to try to get through as many questions as possible. We will take a short break around halfway through because 2 hours is a long time to be sitting and not like hydrating, stretching, restrooming, whatever you need to do on that break time. And we're looking forward to a great event. I'll remind everyone again at the end, but there will be an anonymous evaluation sent out to everyone who attended. Those evaluations help us so much. We want to make sure that we're providing programs that are interesting and helpful to people. So be as brutal as you need to be. It's just really important that you complete the evaluation. If you're able to do that, we would really appreciate it. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists. We're going to go one at a time. I was saying earlier that one of my biggest fears is mispronouncing people's names, so we're going to be doing first names only today. So I'm going to introduce each panelist. They're going to say what organization they're with, what their role is there, and a little bit about what they do. And then after they've all introduced themselves, we will start with the first batch of questions. So Alyssa, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to have you introduce yourself first, and then we'll go to Dawn after that. Ladies first today. So Alyssa, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Alyssa Bayer, and I work in North Arlington Public Library, which is a member of the Buckles Library Consortium. I'm the head of youth services here. So I'm in charge of collection development, programming, community outreach, covering different aspects of the library and all the great stuff that comes with youth services.
Thank you. And I should have said also, Alyssa, would you mind saying how long you've been in your current position?
Sure. So I started out as a volunteer in 2017, and then I started working part-time as the youth services librarian in January of 2018. And then thankfully we were able to get enough money to have a full-time position of January 2020. And then I've been here ever since.
Great. Alyssa, thank you so much. We look forward to hearing more from you. Dawn, would you mind introducing I think, oh, good, you're not muted. Sorry. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you all for having me. Mike knows that I will be happy to tell you all of my tales. I'm currently the director at Old Bridge Public Library. I've been here 3 years. This is my fourth library as an administrator. I've kind of become a fixer as I've gotten older, and I think it's important to know why I became a director. I loved being a librarian. I've done school, academic, public, children's, reference, all the things. And what I wanted to do was support my colleagues to go out and be the best that they can be. So somebody's got to sit locked in a room and pay the bills. So for right now, that's me.
Oh, I love how you put that, Dawn, because I feel like that's what I do. I'm just locked in this room, like making money appear that we don't really have and moving numbers around. So thank you for saying it that way.
Yeah, and I just love, I love seeing what my colleagues would do, if given a positive internal culture.
That's great, Dawn. We really look forward to hearing more from you, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to save Patrick for last because he's our out-of-state attendee. So, Mike, you're up next if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Problem. I'm Mike Gurgurev. I am the Digital Initiatives. I can't barely say my title. The
You're
Digital Initiatives
okay.
and Platforms Librarian at the Maine Library Alliance. So we're formally a consortium. We'd like to use the word cooperative now. We're Buckle's
hmm
counterpart in northwestern New Jersey. We cover 7 counties currently. And what I do here, the job position is mainly handling, well, all our platforms, heavily, I can't talk today, I apologize. A
You're
heavy
doing great.
focus on the our library discovery layer, our mobile app, Overdrive and Libby. I do some e-content ordering and our various other platforms, as well as backup ILS stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and
Great,
I've been
Mike.
in my
Oh,
current, oh, sorry, I've been in my current position for 3.5 years.
awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. We're really glad to have you here today and excited to hear more about your position and how you arrived there. And last but certainly not least, my former colleague from Richmond Public Library in Richmond, Virginia, Patrick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a senior librarian here at the Richmond Public Library. Really, it's a lot of everything. I'm a notary. I handle ILLs. I get all the system-wide emails that we get. Um, I'm in charge of the volunteers. And of course, I spend a fair amount of time just hanging out at the reference desk. So it's kind of a big smattering of whatever I've accumulated over the past 8 years of being here.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Virginia today, too. We really
Of course.
appreciate you. All right. Is everybody ready to get started? I hope it's a yes because we're going for it either way. So what I'm going to do in the order that we introduced y'all in, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Don't feel the need to repeat yourself. So if you've already answered that question in a previous question, you could just say, that's already been covered, or we can just move on to the next one. But I'm going to start with you, Alyssa. So you ready to go? First question. Did you always envision yourself working in a library or library related field? Is that something you always envisioned for yourself, Alyssa?
No, I loved books and I loved libraries growing up, but I never envisioned myself working in one. When I was pursuing my bachelor's, it was more education, and then I
hmm
switched it to psychology. And libraries were just always a safe space for me. So whenever there were times of stress, I would just go there, like de-stress, and then it just fell into place working in a library.
Cool. I feel like psychology degree may be helpful working in a public library.
It
So
it has been very helpful, and I also
yeah.
have a master's in school counseling too.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
all that training has been very helpful working with the community and the public and with the kids.
For sure. I believe that. Thank you. Dawn, same question to you. Have you always envisioned yourself working in a library or library related field?
Never. And it's been 30 years of never. When I told my family that I was going to become a librarian, you would have thought I was telling them I was going to become an international drug lord. It was so
Oh.
alien to them. But what I started was in history when I was an undergrad, and I worked in Ocean County at the Historical Museum there and helped them to develop that space. And when I decided, that the reality of life was that an undergrad in history was not going to play out very well. I had to decide to get a master's in history or master in libraries. And libraries seemed to make more sense because then I'd be where the books are if I wanted to pursue other things later. And it's just been a wild ride since then.
Great. Thank you so much, Dawn. Mike, same question for you. Did you always envision yourself working in a library or a library related field?
Definitely not. I started working in the library for volunteer hours in high school, my senior year of high school. And so I did that. That was 2020. And then at some point, there was when they realized I had some tech skills and, website skills and, et cetera, I was doing that in the library. And then there was a job position open and I had that choice. And I also had a application for Blockbuster. And I was like, and I think I made the right choice. And then it just kind of spun off from there.
Cool. Thank you so much. Blockbuster or the public library? Oh, it's really,
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes we are Blockbuster though, so fair enough.
hmm
Patrick, same question to you. Have you always envisioned yourself working in a library or a library related field?
No, you'll see, sorry. It's like a family thing. I never really meant to get into it. My sister, my mom, and my wife are all librarians, and my mom kind of elbowed me into it after she got her degree. I originally was going for music, and then I ended up with an anthropology bachelor's. I was kind of hoping to get into museums maybe, so kind of adjacent. But that wasn't really going anywhere. So I got the master's degree in my MLS, and I ended up here at Richmond, Richmond Public. So it worked out well. It just took a longer time than it should have, I guess, to get here.
Thank you, Patrick. It's funny that all of you said no, by the way. You all said nope, was not my plan. So, a universal truth, at least with our panelists today. I know some of you covered this a little bit, but you just run briefly through your educational slash professional background if there's anything you didn't mention. So we'll start back with Elisa. Alyssa. It's Alyssa, right?
Alyssa, yeah.
Okay. Phew. All right, Alyssa, thank you. Go
Like
ahead.
I mentioned earlier, I have a bachelor's of science in psychology with a counseling concentration. I got a master's of arts in school counseling, and then I was having a little difficulty finding a job, and then started volunteering here, and then I started another master's program, and I went to Rutgers. So I got a master's of information with library information sciences, and I was a substitute teacher. I worked as an art camp counselor and retail customer service along the way.
Wow.
Yeah,
A little bit of everything.
a
Thank
little bit of
you.
everything.
Dawn, I know you mentioned some of your background, but if you wouldn't mind just running us through, thank you.
Yeah, so the history preservation interest was my strongest motivation at the beginning. I applied to Winterthur actually to become a preservationist, didn't work out. And it just so happened that when I was in college, I worked my way through doing before and after school programs and summer camps. So I had a lot of experience working with kids. And so my first public library job ended up being as a children's librarian, as the head of
Mm-hmm.
children. So. Yeah.
Very cool. And same here. I worked at all the camps and all the after schools, and I was a children's librarian for like 10 years. So the same. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mike, I know you were like, it was a coin toss between Blockbuster and libraries, but if you could just run us a little bit through um, like your educational background and all that too, if you don't mind.
Yeah, in terms of getting my current position, there's a whole lot of working part-time at a bunch of libraries. So I eventually started working full-time. I was going to school for media, went to
Hmm.
Bergen Community College, and I thought I was going to be doing, I don't know, movies, television, something or other, doing a lot of corporate videography for a while. But I worked at my hometown library for 16 years,
Wow.
part-time and then started working at like three or four different libraries at the same time, part-time, acquiring skills and, learning everything there is to learn. And then just so it's very experience oriented in terms of eventually some of you who have been in Buckles for more than recently, I was
Yep.
the sysadmin
We know
there.
you. Yeah.
And then that spun off into working at my current position.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Patrick, I know you went through some of it, but could you give us the whole timeline if you don't mind?
Um, yeah, so my undergrad was classical percussion performance. That didn't really pan out, so I swapped part of the way through, graduated with the anthropology degree. But that happened like right in like 2007 when the economy tanked for everything. So there weren't
Yeah.
any museum jobs to be had. So I found myself in warehouses for like 5 years. And then went back and got the degree and then did some other law firm and call center junk before I took the chance on a temp position at our North Avenue branch. And then that sort of transitioned me here to Maine, and
Hmm.
I just
I
sort of
remember.
looked into it because I had like no library experience, and they were like, "Cool, you're a supervisor now, bam, librarian senior." And so yeah,
Awesome.
it was just luck at that moment.
I think it was meant to be. Thank you for sharing, Patrick. All right. So, a little bit lighter of a question. What is your favorite thing about your job? Start with Alyssa.
I love creating the programs for all the kiddos here in North Arlington. So I'm in charge of creating programs from the babies all the way to the teens. I love the collection development and seeing their faces light up when they find that book that they were looking for and they just get so excited. I try my best to create a positive, safe, and fun environment. And it's just awesome watching them grow and progress and the skills that they develop, whether it's from story time or from the drawing classes. It's just really awesome to see and hope that they have a positive experience every time they come.
Oh, what an ad for like be a youth services librarian, right? That was chef's kiss. Alyssa, thank you. That was awesome. Dawn and I have like the same, we're like, yes, I remember. Dawn, what's your favorite part of your job, Dawn?
The I have all services envy because I love every part of librarianship. And I will
Yeah.
tell you, I also have consortium envy. Um,
Oh,
because Stella, I just love all the things that you all do. I'm going to make it a little heavier, but what I love doing at this point, I find with libraries, having just been in so many different libraries, I find that there's what I call libraries the happy machine. When all of the portions of the equation are balanced with staffing and need and training and support, they really kind of run themselves. And getting a board on board and motivating them and getting all of that sorted. So fixing things so that everybody can then go do that programming, build that collection, get an atrium put together for the community, all that kind of thing is what I really enjoy doing.
making the wheels turn, right? That's what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Great to hear that. Thank you for sharing. Mike, how about you?
I guess one of the things I like most about my current position is all the problem solving. When we have all these different consortium-wide platforms that don't necessarily work perfectly or talk to one another, you need to have creative solutions to get everything to sort of gel together. I will say I do miss working in public libraries a bit
Mm,
sometimes too, and dealing with the public and all that. If I could do both at the same time, I would, but yeah, I only have so many hours in a day.
great. Thanks for sharing. Another problem solver. That's awesome. And Patrick, what about you?
Um, and I think a lot of us get into this profession because we like being helpful and we also just like being dorky. But I think for me, the nicest part about being here is actually fellow staff. We've
Yeah.
assembled like a great team here, and everyone knows what they're doing, and you can just sort of send them off and get it done. And it's just like it makes the workplace a lot more enjoyable if you don't have troublesome coworkers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the crew we have here now, so it kind of is the thing that makes me want to just keep going at it.
That's great. Yeah, that is really important. Having a good team is so important. It can really make or break a workplace for sure. All right, awesome. Okay, back to Alyssa. What are some challenges that you've faced that you didn't necessarily anticipate? So any like surprise problems that you've run into?
Um, So like I said, the library has always been my happy place. So sometimes some patron interactions that happen when people get a little upset, I'm like, it's still a happy place. Why are we so upset? Everybody just take a breath and we'll be able to hopefully navigate it. Um, I never reinforcing like professional boundaries and like the role within the community, like our role here as the youth services librarian, what I can do here, community outreach, and trying to find the balance between the needs of the library itself and the
Mm.
community, and also some social media discussions. Having patrons come into the library and say, "Guess what I read today?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to know. I have no idea. And if you have a discussion, please come to the board meeting so we'll be able to discuss it." So I didn't anticipate that. Maybe that's naive on my part, but it wasn't something that I was expecting.
It's also that's changed a lot, right? So
Yes.
anyone who's been in libraries like 20 or 30 years, you've had people complaining that whole time, but
Yes.
it's different now. It's
Yes.
definitely a new minefield to
Yes.
navigate. So we're all still learning
Yep.
that for sure. Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Dawn? I know you said you're a fixer. You like to like put out fires, solve problems, put systems in place. It sounds like all that good stuff, but have you run into any problems that you didn't necessarily anticipate?
Yeah, so I think those are just administrator problems. When I read this question, I immediately thought back to the beginning of my career. And
Mm,
this is negative, but since we're in a good space to talk about it,
sure.
the prejudice and limiting thoughts of
Mm,
other people in the profession, not outside
mm,
the profession, from within. Oh, you can't be a children's librarian and then go be an academic librarian. What do you mean? And now you're going to do, have your own business abroad. There really are, if you analyze and kind of cook everything down to the core skills and the structures that are important. I learned so much when I was at Monmouth University and I was liaison to the communication department that it's really about people. But, some of the most devastating blows that I had to overcome in my career were from my directors, who
ugh,
would say, oh, aren't you just so enthusiastic about your job? Yeah, that's why I'm here. So, I've also had great inspiration from my colleagues. So I'm not trying to paint it negatively, but that was a shock to find because
mm,
especially library organizations can get a little clubby, and it's like,
hmm.
oh, it's different. Get away from there. But I think we're doing better with that and appreciating all different kinds of people now.
I think that's a great point, Dawn, and I feel like everyone has experienced that to some degree, right? Like just being shocked at people's either willingness or unwillingness to work with you or help you or do what the library needs done, right? So that's an excellent point. Thank you for bringing that up. And Mike, how about you? I mean, I know you're like fixing problems all the time, but are there any specific things that you didn't anticipate?
I would say, well, first of all, the thing I did anticipate was just being super busy all the time. I know that from working at Buckles, and when you're in consortium work and probably any library work, there's not enough hours in the day. I think for me, what I maybe didn't anticipate was just like how broad a spectrum of like how many vendors and how many
Mm,
pieces of software that you need to keep track of. Like when I was a system administrator at Buckles, I dealt with a lot, but it was still like the ILS, and sort of one thing. So now I need to spread my focus, and you know, sometimes there'll be something you need to do for insert random vendor name here, and like you forget about it for a month. Like, oh, I need to follow up on that. It's a lot to keep track of, and time management isn't my strongest point, so that can be difficult.
just lots of balls in the air at once, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
not a good juggler at all.
I think it's good that you can recognize that though. So that's the first step. You know what I mean? So that's good. Patrick, how about you?
I think the biggest problem I didn't really anticipate is how much other city organizations treat us like social services.
Yeah.
And so, we spend a lot of time having people be like, well, I was sent here because I was told you would help us with this form. And it's like, well, sort of. Like, I guess we can hop on a computer and like, kind of go over it a little bit, but we don't know anything about like every single form we need to fill out for you, social services or, job applications. And like, I don't know, there's so many things that people are sent to us for that are sort of outside of our wheelhouse. So you're dealing with a lot of those sorts of potential conflict moments where someone is expecting the help and you're not really prepared to do it, you know? We all do it to the best of our ability, but it's a lot.
And it's frustrating when you really want to help people, but you're getting things that are beyond your scope or just the volume that's beyond capacity, right? Like that's really
Yes,
challenging. Yeah.
especially with like trips into like legal matters and,
Hmm.
we're a law librarian currently, so we get a lot of legal questions that none of us are qualified to speak on or would get in
Yeah.
trouble if we did, you know?
Right. But the patron's still looking for an answer, so it's a hard position to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, another general question for all of you. Do you have any general advice for people who are looking to try a new career path or a new position? Alyssa, we'll start with you again.
Um, I think if you had the opportunity to volunteer or shadow somebody within the field that you might want to pursue a career in, I think that would be a really good idea just to see a day in the life of that career. Nothing that you learn through all the jobs that you have in your life isn't wasted. And sometimes you could take those skills and reuse them in a different way, and it could also help you think outside the box. Um, like for myself, the substituting experience and working at the art camps, I use that now when I do my preschool story time and I run it like a little library school. So it's not wasted. It just might not be what you originally thought it would be, but you could use it in a new way.
That's great. Great advice. Thank you. How about you, Dawn? What do you think?
I have two main things. One is beware and be aware of industry language, your own and everybody else's. Every industry, I mean, every organization has its own unique identity, but the jargon, the skills that we're
Mm,
all doing around the world are not, that unique from each other. And there are a lot of people who will use that language as a weapon with other people. So just
mm.
being aware of that. And then the second is a little silly. I'm going to bring up an 80s slogan, live juicy. Everything that you do, everything that you love is, added to your skill set. Talk to other people, let them know your interests, be genuinely curious about theirs, because all of these, we all know, right? The networks come together and that's how you build opportunities.
Great advice. Be juicy. I like it. That's a good one. And it's always nice to have an opportunity to connect with people, right? And sometimes you just need to make that connection. Yeah.
Just to give a specific one, when I was at Monmouth University, we were making tutorials for using our databases, and we wanted them to have animation and sound. So I got on and I started doing the voice for them. That literally led me to eventually being a voice actor. You've heard my voice on television, and it came from my library work. You know what I mean? I
Mm,
never went around thinking I wanted to talk about toilet paper and make money from it, but I did. So,
that's great.
all that stuff comes together.
Awesome. How interesting. I'm gonna have to ask you questions about that part of your life at some other time, Dawn, but that sounds
Okay.
fascinating. Thank you
It's
so
been fun.
much. So same to you, Mike. Same question. Any advice for people looking to find a new career path or a new position?
I think all I would say is pretty much to expand upon what people have already said. I think I've found that there is nothing I've done in public libraries that wasn't useful elsewhere. And
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, occasionally I think I see people in certain fields, particularly if like a library system is very compartmentalized, they'll like kind of put the blinders on for like stuff this department does or that department does, and try to know a little bit of everything, because it'll come in handy, like particularly if you're like you want to become a director, you then need to kind of know a little bit of everything, so I think that's what I would say.
That's great. Thank you. Patrick, same question. Any advice?
Yeah, I guess I'd say maybe be willing to take a chance on something because, like I said before, when I started at the library, I had no like experience. So when I took the temp position, I had left another full-time, like reliable job to just take a chance of maybe finally getting into libraries. And it was very, at the time, I'm glad I made that choice because it worked out. But, taking a part-time temp position,
Hmm.
was risky at the moment. And so like you might have to be uncomfortable for a while to get what you want to get, to make it happen.
Well, you took a chance, right? You made a leap and it worked out for you. So
It sure did. And I met
scare.
you. Yeah.
Yay. Two more questions for everyone, and then I'm going to read a bunch of, sorry, these are my fidget pens. Everyone just saw me fidgeting. I apologize, but it's so hard for me to sit still for this long. I'm going to ask two more questions to everyone, and then I have a series of questions that I'll just ask open to the panel, and anyone can answer them. So we're almost through this first section, guys. You're doing awesome. Thank you so much again to our panelists. Um, Alyssa, do you have any advice for someone who's a solo librarian or staffer who wants to gain supervisory experience? So, like, you're a one-person department, which maybe you are, I'm not sure. But do you have any advice to anyone in that position where they're like a lone department head or member and they want to gain supervisory experience, potentially move up?
So I was for the majority of my tenure here was a one-woman show.
Hmm.
Recently, one of our library pages was promoted to be the youth services assistant, and she
Oh,
primarily
cool.
does the programming on Saturdays, and she's amazing. Um, our community here requires the teenagers to have a specific number of community service hours, so that might be
Mm,
a way to gain some supervisor experience. If there's any task set by your director, that's another way to get supervisor experience. And when I was in library school, the LAMP committee had the supervisor training program. So I took
yes.
that, which was really helpful.
It's a great program.
Yeah, and
Thank
things,
you for plugging
yeah, because it was
it.
good. And it was great that I was able to attend it while I was in school.
Hmm.
So that's what I have currently.
That's all really great advice. Thank you. How about you, Dawn?
I think it's important to break down the core skills and to see them in relation to management and not be intimidated by that. I remember when I first transitioned back into libraries from corporate and my first director position, when I was a school librarian, I handled our budget. So yeah, it
Hmm.
was a much smaller budget, but I did budgeting. I did the
Right.
collection management, I implemented migrations on our ILS system. So it's taking those things, even though, I wasn't a public library director and I did them on a smaller scale. And I will say, I'm actually going to be moving on to my next career at the end of May. But when I'm looking for my board to help them get a new director in, I don't mind somebody who's been like a director in a small library because they learned how to do everything. They learn
Right.
how to process the books, how to handle the circulation system, how to handle reference queries, do the programming, do the marketing. So, it's really about just holding on to those skills and being confident and standing up for them. No, I haven't done that on this scale, but I have done it.
That's great advice because even if you're not supervising someone, you can work on the skills that it takes to supervise someone or to run a larger organization for sure.
Yeah.
Great advice. Thank you. Mike, how about you? What do you think?
The two things I can think of are really, if you are in a standalone department, anyone can run a program at the library. So, if you know having the experience just supervising the running of a program, and
Hmm.
to expand upon what people have already said, supervising volunteers can just sort of reinforce those skills, give you some base. And if you're really desperate, sometimes people are just looking for part-time supervisors on the weekend places. For up until one or
That's
two
true.
years. Up until 1 or 2 years ago, I was the circ supervisor on Sundays at the Tenafly Library. Still work there occasionally, but and just having that word supervisor anywhere in your resume can help a lot, even if it's just a small like weekend job.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you for sharing that. Patrick, last but not least, what do you think?
Um, and when I got this job, I didn't really have any supervisory experience, and they just sort of foisted a couple of staff on me, so I sort of had to learn on the fly there. But and there are other like in-house or through like VLA or something, where you have like a chance to attend seminars and things like that to, hone any other skills that you may have missed along the way. So I hopefully your institution has some means of professional development. I mean, not all of them do, of course, but it's always worth reaching out to, people higher up for their input on how to, how you can better yourself for that.
Great, thank you. No, that's a good suggestion. We're lucky here that we do have pretty decent access to professional development. But Patrick mentioned VLA, the Virginia Library Association. You could certainly, maybe it's not necessarily supervisory experience, but like speaking presenting, that's the word, at a conference is a great resume builder too. So that's always something available to everyone. And I would also just like to say, as a director, I am always happy to show my staff any miserable part of my job that they want to see. Like, you want to see me cry over the budget? Come on down. Like, you are more than welcome. This is not private information. If you want to see like how I review policies or come to a board meeting, I mean, that's hopefully you have a director that is willing to share that information with you. If not, maybe the library in your hometown has a director who would be willing to share it with you, or you have a colleague who is like a really friendly boss who would be happy to show that information to you, because that's always helpful too. Awesome. So we have one more general question for all the panelists, and then I think after we answer this, we'll take a quick break since we're doing pretty well with time. So back to Alyssa again. This is a similar question. How can people who are interested in management, but in their current position, they're not involved with anything like municipal funding, payroll, or other director-related tasks, learn what they need to in order to move into that sort of role? So we sort of talked about this a little bit, but if you have anything to add, feel free to add
Sure, to
now.
just piggyback off of what you just said, Leo, who's here, he is my director. I'm very fortunate to have him as a mentor, and if I have any questions, his door is always open, and he'll show me what he's doing, and he always says, put it in your library director hat for when you become a director, and so it's good to have a
That's
good,
great.
open, working relationship. So he shows me the ins and outs of all this stuff.
That's great to hear. And I'm not surprised because Leo's the best. So
He
I'm
is the
glad that
best.
you have such a good director. Dawn, how about you?
Alyssa, I just want to say that warms my heart because I always tell my staff that I want you sitting in my chair someday, and I mean it sometimes. So I definitely, just I think what everybody's already said is creating the opportunities, looking for them, and cross training. I think cross training can be really fun for your staff. Everybody spend a day with your financial person writing all the checks for the pom-poms you're going to use with your programs and glitter, that kind of thing. But also, asking, making somebody aware that you're looking for any opportunities. And if you don't have a director who's going to support you in that, then going out to another library and taking that part-time job. If somebody comes into me and they've been a librarian for 20 years and they've also worked at Wawa on the weekends as a shift manager, that's huge. That's meaningful to
Hmm.
me because you're going to be able to bring some skills to that supervisory position that other people couldn't.
That's great advice and a really good point, Dawn. Thank you. Mike, anything to add?
I think my synopsis of all that is just be nosy. Like I'm constantly like listening in on meetings that, I don't necessarily are involved, have immediate involvement with, but just sort of absorb as much information as you can. Um, you know, to the point of, not invading any meetings, but like, it's I'm the type of person I kind of want to know everything at all times. Like I should be invited to every single meeting, even if I don't have the time to like attend them. So that's sort of my approach.
I think be nosy is good advice in general. So thank you for sharing that. And last but not least, Patrick, do you have any suggestions?
I mean, yeah, kind of piggyback on what everyone else has said there, just, we're pretty lucky here to have a comparatively transparent admin here. So if I wanted to just, go up the chain and talk to someone, having that support from them is very helpful. We're welcome to review all the board meetings and all that mess if we want to see what they're talking about. Um, so yeah, I know maybe not all institutions are quite so open, but I think that's the helpful thing to have.
Thank you. I will say too, piggybacking on what Patrick and Mike just said about being nosy and open admin, I would like read minutes if they're online. I would look at budgets if they're online. I would go to board meetings, even if it's not your library. Like board meetings are open to the public. You could just go and see how they're run. Also, different boards run meetings in different ways, which many of you know. There are very different ways to run board meetings. So I think there are always ways to learn for sure. But thank you for those great examples. It is 2:41. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, come back here at 2:46, and then we'll go through the questions we received in advance and then open up the floor for Q&A. Does that sound good to everyone? Well, whether or not it does, that's what we're going to do. So we'll be back at 2:46. So everyone take a 5-minute break and we'll see you in a couple minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, folks. I'll just give everyone one more minute. Panelists, you guys are doing an awesome job. Thank you so much. We're so lucky to have you with us today. Such a good looking group. What can I say? All right. Just give people one more minute. All right, welcome back, everyone. Just a reminder, we are recording still, just in case anyone was feeling a little frisky. Okay, so we received a whole bunch of questions in advance. It is not too late to ask a question. We're doing great with time, so feel free to enter questions into the chat box. If you'd like to ask a question anonymously, you can direct message Catherine, and she will not spill the beans. She'll just ask your question, and we'll keep it going. So the way we'll do these is I will ask the question and any of the panelists are welcome to answer. All of you, one of you, none of you, hopefully one of you, but we'll just leave it kind of open because some may apply to more may apply to one of you more than others. So um, anyway, our first one, oh, the times we're in. Question number one. Are there any remote opportunities for those with a library background? Anyone want to take a swing at that?
And I can say that we have a little bit here at Richmond Public. The, there's certainly not a full-time remote, but we are pretty flexible in that, certain upper level people are maybe 1 or 2 days a week are allowed to work from home, and if they can easily justify it.
Mm-hmm.
They do really want to make sure that you're not just at home wasting time. But we do have several staff here that work from home 1 or 2 days a week. So partially.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else?
I mean, there's certain. Oh, go ahead, Don.
Go ahead. No, no, you go ahead.
I was going to say there's certainly some opportunities for remote work, like working in consortiums, to a degree, and certain other fields within, like, you're a cataloger, you can catalog at home if you don't need items on hand, and this is kind of maybe getting into like a later question too, but in terms of if you have a library background and there's library adjacent work, I know that some of our vendors are like we have vendors that are full-time complete remote from work from home like our primary ILS vendor, they don't have offices, like it's
Wow.
everybody works from home, so and that's becoming fairly common, at least for library vendors, which is a niche, but they do hire you know librarians at times. They need catalogers and people with library experience, so
Thank you. Dawn?
I was going to add, so I've been looking at this a lot because I'm heading back overseas. So remote work there, I mean, it's just easier. It's an easy way to do things. But a lot of it's in AI, and I have
Mm,
as yet I won't do it, but there's a lot of, query review and research verification. But all you're doing is building AI, and I don't know too many people that want to have that on their conscience, let alone their resume. And then the other part of it is there's a lot of work still with people with library backgrounds with data management, right? With managing, big chunks of data and different kinds of things, and transitioning those and managing databases, and all of that kind of thing, which borders into technology, can also frequently transition for library people.
great point. Thank you so much. I was going to say that here it's similar to what Patrick was saying. Depending on the position, I'll let people work remote part of their week if it makes sense for them to do that. Obviously, you're not circulating from home or like cleaning the building from home, but like our head of technology is allowed to work partially remote. A lot of our librarians can do their collection development from home if they want to work remote occasionally. So, anyway, thank you all for chiming in on that. We got more responses than I thought, actually. So that was really helpful. Second question. Why are full-time positions difficult to find at libraries? My immediate reaction as a director and someone who writes a small budget is that it's a budget problem, but I don't know if you all have other answers.
It's definitely a budget problem, but it's also
Yeah.
sometimes a trustee
Hmm.
education and advocacy program. In the library that I'm currently in, they were so grossly understaffed and underspending, which I
Mm.
know is unheard of a lot of times in libraries. When I got here, we had one full-time adult services person for 70,000 people.
Whoa.
It was really insane. I had no IT manager. I had no facility manager for a 50,000 square foot facility. I had no custodian. So, a lot of the time it's getting out there. Why do I need two reference librarians at my desk all the time? Because we
Hmm.
regularly have 800 plus people a day coming into this building. So, and showing them how the numbers go up when I have people there so that the phone call's not getting ignored while somebody's showing them how to find a book. So, sometimes it's advocacy gently, and sometimes it's knock down, drag out, arguing about it. But making sure, there's a tendency among a lot of trustees that aren't library advocates, and you're going to find a lot of those in the public library world. Um, that, well, we don't need that anymore. Oh, well, nobody does that anymore, and they're just wrong. And anytime we don't speak up and, we don't elevating reference. I just went into the high school where they're actually using AI to produce lesson plans and do lessons and all that kind of thing. If I have teachers who are Googling and I have students who are Googling, you're not going to have much authority as a teacher. If I have a teacher who's coming in with New York Times historic database, New Jersey historic newspapers with opposing viewpoints, they're going to have material that you're not getting from Google. So I think that it's our duty to create roles for the next generation of librarians and really start to make sure that we set ourselves up as an information authority.
Thank you, Dawn. Anyone else? I don't know what
I
else. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I can say that when I was in library school, I had the ability to work while I was in school, which I thought was really great with our degree. But when I graduated, I didn't have a full-time position, so I was working three part-time positions to put my son
Yeah.
through preschool. So it's like you just got to do what you got to do, and it's kind of like in terms like for our consortium, getting your foot in the door is key, and you network and you talk to everybody and get to experience different parts of librarianship if you can, until a full-time position comes.
Good advice.
Yeah, I
Thank
also
you.
think there's like at least here, a tendency to not leave. You get a lot of people
Mm.
who just hold on to that job because like it's working for them. Like I have no plans to ever leave this, so this position will be, full for the next 30 years, whatever. Um, and I guess that's maybe unless admin changes and it gets terrible or something. But I fully plan on sticking around, so that's another reason there aren't any jobs, because we're hogging them all up.
That's a good reason, though. So that's a positive spin on it, at least. All right. Another employment question. How to pivot out of public libraries? This person is wondering how you could possibly pivot from public library experience to something else. Now, Dawn was talking about data management and feeding the AI machine. Not to put words in your mouth, Dawn, but that's what I would say. And then Mike talking about consortium work earlier. But does anyone else have any suggestions of how to take your public library skill set and pivot? I do think a lot of those skills are applicable to lots of public service and educational positions, but I want to hear from our panelists. So, no, nobody? I don't believe it. Dawn, please go ahead. You got to
Just
unmute
roll,
yourself. Okay, there you go.
yeah, roll your eyes when I go on too long because I will. Um, I think that's just it. There's a heavy culture in libraries of I had to work those three part-time jobs. I finally got my full-time one, so this is where I'm at. And when I'm applying somewhere or taking on a new job, and people are like, well, you don't stay. Well, no. I mean, if my first internship was at the Ford Foundation, and if I'd stayed there, I never would have become a public library director. I wouldn't have had half of the experience that I do. There's a line from a poem by Rainier Marie Rilke, to be a total nerd, but no feeling is final. And for me in this career, no experience is final. I don't plan on ever stopping learning, and doing new things. And even if you're staying in your full-time job and you're holding on to that, there are other things that you can do and explore on the side, to kind of keep things going for yourself. But I think that's just it. I think you can absolutely, maybe not in this current political climate be daring, but I think there's room to be bold in your choices.
Thank you. No eye rolling at all. That was like snaps. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate that. Um, okay, a little bit different kind of a question, and I think all of you may have something to contribute to this. Besides library experience, what characteristics are hiring managers looking for in job candidates? So I would add to that and say, besides characteristic, what other experience are hiring managers looking for? I know Don mentioned somebody who managed a Wawa. Like, yeah, then you have management experience. If you can manage retail or food service, whoo, you could do anything. But what other skills and characteristics, pardon me, would you all say that hiring managers are looking for? Don't all chime in at once, panelists. Come on.
I mean, for me, like when we're, doing any like hiring panel, it's clearly they've already met whatever hurdle has gotten them like past HR, so we know they have all of their, professional qualifications are sort of in line. So then the interview is really more of like a vibe check. You want to make sure that like they're going to fit in with the culture that you have in your building or in your system. And so it's like how confident are they? Are they, willing to sort of be playful in that moment and just, because that's how it's going to be out there on the floor when you're all like friends with your coworkers. So you need someone who's gonna mesh with the group. So it's not so much, I don't know, characteristic as much as it is personality in that moment.
Right. Soft skills are really important, and you don't want to work with a jerk, right? So being a people person and being able to work with lots of different kinds of people, that's always important. Thank you, Patrick. Anyone else? There's a similar question right behind this, so I'm just going to roll into that question. Maybe it'll keep everybody talking. What transferable skills, i.e., technology, marketing, finance, community outreach, et cetera, are valued by libraries? First of all of those are valued by libraries, but can anyone think of more to add to that list? We had technology, marketing, finance, community outreach. Whew, those are all super important in libraries. What other skills do y'all think are good transferable skills? I think being able to teach any kind of class or seminar, public speaking, those are all super important, and customer service, of course. Anything else?
I can kind of merge the two questions together. So,
Mm-hmm.
two critical things for me when I'm hiring is I always ask people what they know about our community. So, it's
Mm,
making sure that people have an understanding of what a public library is. I don't think that libraries are teaching enough of library history. Why are public, libraries so politically involved? Why are we pillars of democracy? Because trust me, they're not in France. So, just people who have an understanding, you should look at the demographics of a community before you come in. That blows me away when I know that someone's done that, whether they're in circulation or whether they're our custodian, all of those things. And then the other part is being able to acknowledge mistakes. It's my favorite question and it drives my staff crazy. When did you make an error and learn from it? And if they don't have any, that's a huge problem. But yeah, definitely. I think another thing that's not really a skill that you can quantify is going to be empathy. Just people being
mm.
able to put themselves in someone else's shoes, put them in the patron's shoes, understand who Cirque is. Just a lot of people awareness. And I think a lot of that can be taught, but it's great when somebody comes through the door with it.
Right, meeting people where they are, right? Because we can't serve people if we're not meeting them where they are, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe those people have just never made a mistake, Dawn. Come on, maybe they're perfect. I'm just kidding. I'll tell a really short story. After I was hired here, I found on my predecessor's hard drive interview notes on every applicant, including myself. Don't ever read that if you find it. Apparently, I say awesome enough that it was like noteworthy that it was put in the notes about my interview. But I will say this. The other people interviewed were all qualified. Many of them had much more experience than I did. I was the only one who applied who did research on the community, read the library strategic plan, read board minutes like a nosy Mike, be nosy, and read the city's master plan. I was the only one who commented on any of that in the interview. And that was all available, easy to see information. I didn't do anything any of the other applicants, they could have done the same thing. It was just that I took the time to do that, and I'm convinced what got me this job. So don't always do your research, like Dawn said. Get to know the community you're applying for. Look at the library's website, see what programs they're offering, and know what you're stepping into. It goes a long way, and it's easily attainable information. So that could really put you ahead too. I think it's definitely an important step if you're interested in going to a new organization. Get to know the organization before you apply, and bring that knowledge with you to the interview.
When I look at the question, I have trouble thinking, particularly for a public library, what skills are there that aren't relevant?
Aren't
Like,
applicable.
like
Yeah,
when I was
it's
working
true.
at my public library, I was doing photography for programs. I was doing, game nights, installing the projector. I mentioned Blockbuster earlier and and you mentioned that libraries were, particularly back then, kind of probably more so than now, were kind of like Blockbuster. I wound up
Hmm.
doing media collection developments and, people were asking for movie recommendations and, it's almost nothing that isn't, again, particularly for public libraries more so than, I don't know, academic or whatever, but maybe that's not even true. Like it's all pretty relevant. So any skill set that you have, you could probably bring to public, I should keep on saying public, but any library, one way or another.
That's a great point, for sure. You never know what skill you'll need. Think of all the weird things you've had to do in your building in the last week, right? Yeah, we all know.
I When I was working at my public library, I was like helping patrons jumpstart cars and like just, you know, I kind of miss like fixing things for kids like that were, like, oh, my fidget spinner broke. Oh, my glasses were broken and my mom's not buying me new ones, which is, sad. But like, things like that. It's just anything you can do is,
Troubleshooting, general
yeah,
troubleshooting.
pretty much.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. Okay, another question to all of our panelists. Some of you spoke about this a little bit, although it's initially you said none of you were looking to get into libraries, but how did you first become interested in library work? And do you feel like it's a requirement to get an MLS or MLIS degree to continue library studies, or are there other paths you can take? I know Alyssa said libraries work a safe space. Sorry, Dawn, you had your hand up.
Yeah,
Go
you're
ahead.
okay. I mean, I'm raising my hand on a Zoom. That's still pretty weird. But I just want to give you all an example because this question about, we get it from so many of our employees, from our library assistants. Well, I could do the same thing that a librarian can. What's the big deal? You do understand you're insulting the entire organization, right? So, finding a way to create that conversation for people where, and also as a director, being sure to create non-librarian roles. I think
Hmm.
that is helpful. But I lived in the Netherlands for 4 years, and the Netherlands does not have a librarian requirement. You simply need an advanced degree of any kind. And when I was applying for jobs there and telling them that I had a library degree, it actually worked against me.
Oh,
Um, so that and everybody in Amsterdam speaks English. You know what I mean? The universities teach in English. So it's not as though it was alien what I was telling them, but my degree was kind of worthless. And I advertised at the Freedom Palace and the International advertised. I auditioned at the International Tax Library, Freedom Palace, that kind of thing. So one of the questions I ask when I'm hiring people is, what's the most valuable lesson you learned in library school? And it's really interesting because I am one of the folks who flipped my wig when they took reference out of Rutgers and it wasn't a requirement anymore. And I think that people do have, oh, how can you stand up to Rutgers and tell them what to do? Because I'm in the profession and they're the ones who are guaranteeing that we're going to have a profession 20 years from now. So I think that a lot of the library schools have tried to be popular. It's like when we went, oh, we're not school librarians, we're school media specialists. No, you're not. you're a librarian. So, and they went through that and then they came back to it. So I think that we as professionals have to advocate with those schools and be involved with them, to make sure that an MLIS is a valuable, investment for someone. I've seen some of the programs, some of the online programs are amazing. Some of them are kind of pointless. They're the standards that we all need to speak up for.
Thank you, Dawn. That's a great perspective. Everyone else is so quiet. So this next question's related. So I'm going to go to the next one. Is the MLIS or MLS worth the investment? I would say it depends, but I'll let other people. It definitely has been worth it for me, but I'd like to hear from other people too.
And I
I,
think, uh,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, like, I mean, I agree with it depends. I guess it kind of depends on the pay you can end up earning with it to balance the expense. And
Yeah.
there's, always something to be said for like learning the extra research skills and everything that you get from the degree itself. But if you're not able to pay it back reasonably or comfortably, then it's like, I'm not sure it was. Um, but unfortunately, Richmond pays decently, so I'm not hurting. But that might not always be the case. There are plenty of other systems around that pay much less, and I'm like, how are you paying off your student
Yeah.
loan?
Good point. Alyssa, you had something to say too, huh?
Yeah, I think it's worth it. And I think because, like I said earlier, I have a previous graduate degree, but you weren't able to work until you finalized the degree. But at least with the MLIS, you were able to work while you were in school, which was good. So you got to see the classroom experience as well as the real world experience and see how some things are transferable and how it might not fit your community and how you could take those skills and like switch it, which I thought that was really cool and important to be able to have that experience and then talk about it with your fellow classmates.
Thank you. I loved getting my library degree. I learned a lot. It was a million years ago, and I attended Drexel. They were one of the only schools that had the online program that I was comfortable with because it was still really rigorous. Because, like Dawn said, some of them, it varies a little now, the online programs. And the best experience I had was part of the requirement at Drexel is that you had to intern at Internet Public Library. Does everybody remember Internet Public Library? It was an online reference service. And I feel like I exclusively was looking up quilt patterns for like old ladies in Pennsylvania, but it taught me research skills that I was never otherwise exposed to working in a public library in suburban New Jersey. So it was great. And I had great professors. And the benefit of an online program is there were students from all over the country. And I really got to learn about rural libraries, about more urban libraries, and things that I wouldn't have necessarily heard directly from people working in those libraries being where I was. But I always say, like, without my degree, I wouldn't have my son and I would not have the life that we have. I feel like it was worth every penny for me, but school's expensive. So I understand the concern and I understand why people are asking that question. But there are a lot of scholarship opportunities for librarians too. So make sure you research all of those.
I
Anyone
wanted to
else?
add one thing. I'm
Yes.
old, so my degree was a lot less than what people are paying now.
Yes, it's more money
Um,
now.
it's so
Yeah.
disgusting what people have to pay now. So I understand that. I became a librarian in 1993. So
Hmm.
I didn't come back and become a librarian. I went straight out of undergrad. Sorry, if you understand my rep.
Yep, I got you. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a much easier decision for me, and I was right on the cusp. There was an internet, but there wasn't really a World Wide Web. So
Yeah,
I feel like I got the best education because I had to learn everything manually, and I had to simultaneously learn everything electronically. So that gives you a really cool perspective on the functions.
for sure. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm going to move along. What is the best way to approach applying for a position where you may not have all of the skills/qualifications that an organization is looking for in their want ad? I, not me, but whoever submitted this question, encounters this mostly as someone who works in a public library with an interest in possibly applying for academic library positions. Dawn, I know you've worked in both. Maybe you could speak to this question.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of that prejudice I was talking about comes from hopping back and forth. So I'm just going to tell you my story. I was a public librarian. I was invited into the schools after doing some collaborative literacy programs in Plainfield. And I went in to teach. And then after 6 years of being a school librarian, I really wanted to work with adults occasionally. And Monmouth University offered every other Saturday, which is not an
Mm,
easy way to get in, but that was my in. And once I did that and I was there, then they offered me being an instructor librarian, and I had to make a decision to leave the schools, and then I became a department head there. But once I was there, nobody questioned it. It was like I just completely blended in. But I find a lot when I've interviewed to go back into academic libraries as a regular librarian, a reference librarian, they highly question it. As an
mm,
administrator, they don't see the difference. They understand you're still paying the bills, hiring people, managing collections. So, yeah, does that make sense?
yeah, definitely. Thank you for your perspective. Anyone else?
Yeah, I want to, I guess, sort of chime in on that same
Yes.
note. Um, with like the prejudice between types of librarianship, because not me personally, but my wife had started in academic and she kept
Mm,
trying to get over to public. And it took years before someone, would sort of take the chance on giving her her first um, public librarian role. And it was just, I don't know, it was kind of frustrating in that moment that there's just sort of that, well, you've only done academic, you couldn't possibly deal with the public. Uh, and it just didn't make any sense. Uh, I feel like a lot of the skills are all transferable. So yeah, the institutions need to settle down.
need to chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to add one story in the opposite direction that I think people need to be conscious of. As a public library director, I once had a public librarian, shockingly, and she was horrified at having to help people fill out their unemployment applications. She didn't want to help anybody make a copy, and she was a very cool person. She just was not about the public library, that was kind of beneath her, and she really wanted to do the reference stuff. And I actually, I was able to sit her down and just say, you don't dislike us, you don't like this work. So I
Right.
absolutely, I agree, Patrick, that they're so transferable in my mind. There's no difference between going from one to the other. But for some people, they do have a hard time. And she actually went on to another career being a docent at a museum, the George O'Keeffe Museum. So
Wow.
it all works out.
Thank you both for sharing that. Um, okay, so this is our last submitted question. I'm going to encourage people attending this to submit additional questions in the chat box while I read this last question. Um, do you feel for career growth and to take the next steps, you had to leave your home library? Is it possible to have true/great growth? Oh my gosh, I hope I have true/great growth. That sounds awesome. True/great growth while staying in one system. So the question is, do you feel like you need to, as we were saying, jump around or move around to gain different sort of experience, or do you feel like you can have true growth in the system you're in now? That being said, some systems are bigger than others, and some systems have a lot of variety and some don't. But the general, nature of the question is, do you feel like you need to take those opportunities and move around to really spread your wings or not?
I guess that kind of depends on the system you're in. Richmond tends to very rigorously hire from within. And so we just constantly promoting people up. We've had someone go from a part-time tech to an associate position to a librarian senior in like 2 years. She proved herself and we're like, awesome, right? Like you're promoted. But I know a lot of other systems nearby tend to hire from the outside and people kind of
Mm.
languish in whatever position they're in. So I guess that's kind of a cultural of each system, how they seek out talent, or foster it.
That's a good point. Mike, you unmuted yourself, so I think you're ready to say something. What are you going to
Yeah,
say?
I was gonna, well, definitely agree. It's highly dependent. For me, my hometown library that I worked at for 16 years was definitely one of those very small libraries where the library assistants did everything. So where I was gaining a lot of knowledge about everything and skill set, it was still the library assistant position, and that's it. And there wasn't a lot of upwards mobility. So in my case, I kind of like as I mentioned earlier, I was just working part time at a bunch of different places just to get those just to fill up my resume, really, and eventually land, a full-time job.
Yeah, that's true. Small libraries are great because you get to do everything, but your position title may never change, right? You may just
Yeah.
be
Mhm.
library assistant for many, many years. It's a good point. Anyone else? No?
I will add, I have a little bit of a different perspective on it because I have jumped in and out of so many different things, but it's not like, oh, I don't like this, and then I've got to go. On a personal level, I just I came from very humble beginnings, and my family, to me, they didn't work hard so that I could make more money. They worked hard so that I could have quality in my work life. And I think it's such a personal decision. If you have a family and you're raising a family, that's your priority. That's not been my choice. So, I call it my quality quotient. And that means my quality. Am I at my best? Am I learning? Am I doing what I want to do? People say, oh, you get bored. I don't get bored. It's just that there are so many opportunities out there. And again, it's living juicy. Oh, what's over that fence? Ooh, what's out of that window? And I don't walk away like at this particular library I'm at right now, I've brought them for 3 years through a dramatic change. And sometimes being the change maker, you don't get to ice the cake. If you're walking into a library that's got a great board and has been functional for a good long time, and except for the minor blips in the day to day, you've got a solid community and a solid library, it's much more difficult to want to leave there. Why would you want
Mm.
to? As a fixer going in and being in, making an extremely toxic atmosphere into one that's manageable for other people, it's super easy to move on and do something else.
It's a good point, Don. Thank you. I personally moved out of New Jersey to gain different library experience and then came back. So I wanted to work in more urban libraries and rural libraries, and I felt like I'd been stuck in suburban libraries here. So, and I got to meet Patrick and all my awesome former coworkers in Richmond, and um, it was interesting going from working in Buckles libraries to a city system. It's totally different. So I was really thankful for that experience. Okay, we had a chat box question. Exciting. I'm gonna let poor Catherine has just had to listen to me talk this whole time. I'm so sorry, and along with the rest of you. So I'm gonna let Catherine read this chat box question to our panelists.
You do a great job, Tara. So
Thanks. Thank you,
all
Catherine.
good. But so we do have a question. So um, Patrick spoke about the importance of a vibe staff should share. How does a director make a distinction between a vibe and a comfort level that longstanding employees share, but hold back opportunities to be more dynamic and offer better services to the community? So it's a lot.
Yeah. Anyone want to tackle that one?
Sorry, was that one directed at me? Or does one of the directors
I
want
think
to?
you just got called out, but I think anyone can answer. So I'll read it one more time because it's a long question.
Yeah.
Patrick spoke about the importance of a vibe that staff should share. How does a director make a distinction between the vibe and a comfort level that long-standing employees share, but may hold back opportunities to be more dynamic and offer better services to the community? So you don't want to hire just along with this vibe that may match, but may not be super progressive, I think is what the person's really asking. So like, how do you distinguish, like, do I want to hire into the same culture, but I may not be hiring as dynamic staff, or how do I like handle that balance? Mary Elizabeth, if I didn't ask the question the way you wanted it asked, please correct me.
No, you did. I was trying to be nice. That's why I was a little long-winded. I was trying to be
No,
nice
it's
because,
okay.
it's sometimes you go into a culture that is you're working with individuals who've been there for 20, 30 years, and it's kind of it feels like their culture and not the community's culture.
Yeah, I got you.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, how do you make the distinction? Like, okay, this person may cause waves, but it's good waves, but it's
Hmm.
not the status quo. So that's my question. And it
So
wasn't
how did,
specifically
okay.
directed towards Patrick. It was anyone who might be able to, you know,
So
because
how do directors or supervisors decide? Do we want to stick with the current staff culture, or is it worth taking the risk of someone who might be a disruptor? Is that what you're?
yeah, but a good
Okay.
disruptor.
Right,
I
right.
thought,
No, ooh,
yeah,
not in a negative way.
yeah,
Yes.
like, yes, that's the
Thank
question.
you. Thank you for clarifying. We appreciate you.
Of course.
Thank you. Anyone want to answer that? Go for it,
This is
John.
my favorite one.
There you go.
Um,
All right, here we go.
I, I'm constantly pushing my staff for excellence. I find very much in libraries that there could be cultures of mean kids sometimes, and you have to fit into our pecking order. We're in a profession where a lot of people derive their self-worth and their self-esteem from their job. So we have to be very careful. I always tell my staff, we don't have feelings about facts, and there are no facts about feelings. So that's where and everything you do, think to yourself, is this useful or is it wasteful? That turned into a whole thing. But it's striving for excellence, constantly going through your statistics and numbers. We're very happy with our program attendance at Read to the Dogs. That's wonderful. We have 70,000 people in this community. We have 11,000 people under the age of 18. I'm so pleased that you had 30 people read to the dogs, but that's a very small percentage of our community. And I don't say it that way because they get offended, but it's constantly striving for excellence. Look at our demographic. Let's really understand. We're going to have our supervisors meeting. Everyone go in and pull something, out of the demographic that's something we can work toward in the next year. And I always tell people we prioritize the organization, not our individual relationships. And if someone is preventing a colleague from reaching their full potential or bringing their full influence to the library, you're wasting taxpayer dollars. Right? Our patrons would much rather have that money back to take their kids to Disney unless we show them why we are the wiser spend. So it's really got to be about maximum utility.
Maximum utility, live in juicy and maximum utility.
That's
And
John Mill, not
and
me.
and
But
I would just add to that and say I think there's a balance between people who will not be toxic to the staff but may help them push forward, right? So like you don't want to throw somebody in that's going to pick fights and like be a jerk or not talk to anybody. But I don't think it's bad for someone to be motivated and like it to inspire other people to be motivated. I think, but it's a tough thing, Mary Elizabeth, because like you don't want to throw a wrench in anything, but you also don't want people who are going to like help maintain complacency either. So it's a tough there's a tough balance
It
there for
is. It
sure.
is because for myself, um, sometimes working with people who've had the same position for 20 or 30 years, and sometimes, 10 years and they're only 28, they don't have a lot of diverse experience.
Sure.
So sometimes I feel like I am making suggestions that people, it's really over their head, and I'm not trying to be disruptive. It's normal to me because I've had these other experiences that other
Right.
people really can't share. So it does seem like kind of like, whoa. And it's like, no, that's what people are doing. That's kind of, standard. So, I everybody wants to be in the vibe, but some experiences forces you out of the vibe.
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes that's just, I mean, I think the hardest people to supervise are people who have been in their job 25 years. They're just like eyeing retirement. They don't want to do new stuff, right?
mhm,
And like
mhm.
can't blame them too much. When you're like at the end of
Yeah.
your, so that's a
Yeah,
hard
but it's
person
like,
that Hmm.
It's like don't rock the boat, but it's also like I want to get to a new shore.
Yes. But that's what I mean. So it's hard, like those for me personally, the people that are the hardest to supervise are people that are like within 5 years of retirement. They're good at
Hmm.
their job,
Yeah.
hopefully. But they don't want to do anything new. What we've been done it this way for 25 years. Why would we change it? Like
Hmm.
they're tough. And sometimes people that have never had a full-time job before are also tough because the expectations sometimes of newer employees are different than like when I started working or when many of us started working. Like I've had people on their third day say like, all right, so when do I get to work remote? And I'm like, yeah, that's
Oh,
you work in circ. Like that's not, you know what I mean? That's not
yes.
really it's not really that kind of job.
Yeah.
But a lot of that I've found over time is to be really transparent in the interview process and when you're, let people know exactly what to expect, and
Yeah.
that can help too. But
So
I guess there's
up,
a balance there. Yeah.
just a follow up, how do you nurture the new employee who has incredible experience, has diverse experience, um, and they want to be motivated and they want to motivate and they want to be mentored, but they're not really getting the support from the staff that's been there for so long because they're like, listen, I'm just trying to get my kid through college. Once she gets her, degree, I'm out of here anyway.
Hmm.
And, I mean, people have different priorities, which is, of course, fine, but some people really do love libraries in like a very passionate way. And it's just the way it is for them. That's a follow-up question.
Are you asking me or the
Just
panelists?
the panelists.
Anyone? Does anyone want to
Anyone.
answer that?
I think a good administrator will make opportunities for
Yes.
you to
Give them
connect.
projects to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you've got to not get involved in their dynamic. It's like with kids. That's for me the way it is. You know what I mean? Like you have a new kid come into the classroom, what do? You find ways for them to connect with the other people around them. You make sure that they're supported. I always tell people, I don't think we change that much from the time we're children. If you were a bully in kindergarten, chances are you're a bully at work.
Hmm.
Um, but everybody has a place and everybody plays a part, and it's also how you dole out praise.
Hmm.
I am extremely supportive of my staff. I am stingy with my praise. You know what I mean? Because I need that. That's one of my most important tools. When I have you go out and do this outstanding project, I'm going to put a letter in your personnel file and say that your team did an outstanding job with that. Are you getting that because you showed up to work on time? No. So, it's knowing about, where your strengths are and how you can motivate people, and then getting out and seeing other directors, meeting other directors, and making sure that you pick up some skills from those other people. So,
Hmm. And
Thank you.
and to follow up what Don said, I would always try to find like every quarter or 6 months a project for staff to work on that they want to work on, like for them to
Hmm.
come up with a program they want to do or some kind of promotion they want to do, something that's fun for them. Like, what are you interested in doing? And we'll try to find a way to fit that into your work. Because some library jobs are really boring. Like if you're just at a service desk or you're just shelving or you're just shelf reading all day, like that's a long day, a long week.
Hmm.
So try to give everyone a little passion project, whatever that is. And some people are going to expand upon that and run with it, and some are just going to do it and be done with it. And but giving them the chance to work on something they're really interested in. That fits in with the strategic plan, that fits in with the needs of the library, but
Of course, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I was
Thank
gonna,
you.
well, I wanted
Go
to,
ahead,
like, I'm not
Patrick.
I'm not a director and ours is very absent.
Yeah,
So
he
we
is.
the people, branch managers and senior librarians that do most of the hiring,
Hmm.
and do most of the supervising for that matter. We tend to let our new people, like Tara said, sort of pitch their own ideas and just have at it. One of my supervisees, came from a lot of like working at garden nurseries and stuff like that, which is like what he was doing while he was getting his degree. And so he started the seed library here in Maine that we, hadn't really been maintaining. So he sort of relaunched it and, got donations from other, other providers and stuff like that. So he has like his thing that he wanted to do. So a lot of our new hires, we look for them people who want to have their own like new things that they're pitching. Like you're still looking for like the right personality, but letting them sort of expand library services in their own way.
Thank you.
And most of our good ideas come from our staff, they're not coming from me. They see the need in the community more directly than I do. I usually only see patrons when they're mad, So like I don't know what the happy people want. They need to tell me that. So, and they do. Um, anyway, thank you for the question. That was a good discussion, Mary
Thank
Elizabeth.
you.
We appreciate you. Anyone else? I feel like there must be more questions out there. Don't be shy. This is a safe space. I'm gonna give people one more minute to potentially ask a question. And then what I'd love to do is any final thoughts from our panelists and then just a couple closing things. But this was a great discussion, and I really appreciate everyone who attended and especially our wonderful panelists. So you guys did such a good job that you've answered all the questions I could possibly think of, which is always a really good sign. All right, so we'll go to closing thoughts then. We're going to go in the order that we started with. So Alyssa, you are on for any final bits of advice, closing thoughts, anything you want to share with the group. Oh, pause. Hold your thought, or just put it to the side. We have one other chat box question. I'll let Catherine read this one. From Geo, who I met the other day. Hi, Geo. Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, so Geo asks, how do you deal with perceived pretentiousness about different types of librarianship?
Anyone? Geo, may I ask a clarifying question? Do you mean from the public, from from patrons, or
Like
general
within
members
the
of the community who,
organization?
right, like don't use the library, or is there a particular concern? Not, I know Demorest is a small town, so don't out yourself or anything, but I'm just wondering if you could narrow it down for us a little bit.
Yeah, or do you mean like between different like
Types of
public
librarians.
versus academic versus law or whichever things, or do you mean like
Yes, between different types of librarians. Thank you for the clarification, Geo. Anyone?
I wanted to say that I had a really interesting experience. Um, I was called into Teton County Library in Wyoming. They told me that they were in crisis when I went. And it was such an interesting experience on so many levels. But when you're living so remotely, when you're in New Jersey, it's not that hard to find somebody who's got some experience in libraries or a
Mm-hmm.
degree. When you're in a town where you're either uber wealthy or you just want to ski, there's people looking for work that aren't going to have even an interest. They just want a job. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was there, there was a lot of prejudice, and that combined, there was this about 10 years ago, I guess, a trend started of everybody in the library could all do the jobs. So
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
oh. So okay, so you make $10, $20 an hour less than somebody. So I need to have, my librarians, people not being compensated for doing librarians work, and then I'm going to have
Yeah.
librarians doing this other work. So it was really interesting when we'd worked so hard to get everybody to respect each other and appreciate each other's talents to go in and say, no, you are not all created the same. So when I was there, I really had to spend a lot of time talking about the history of libraries, the development of libraries, the reason for why we have these different departments and the skills involved and the structures. And, it didn't make everybody happy, but, it's sort of like, to me, it's kind of like maybe this is a bad analogy, but like nurses and doctors, you'll hear nurses say, well, we actually do more than the doctors and that kind of thing. But are we just going to get rid of doctors? There's going to be these prejudices in any professions. But, again, you have your adult services people who think that they do more important things than the children's people. And, maybe your children's people think that the adult services people are no fun. Not in my library. They're all glitter dependent. But there are always going to be those things, and I think that you have to appreciate everyone, get them to understand the differences, but not ignore the differences, is my point.
It's a good point. I will argue that youth services librarians have better snacks than any other kind of librarian. So that's a prejudice that I'll take to my grave. But otherwise, yes, we need to break those walls down for sure. Anybody else? Thank you, Gio, for your question. Okay, so we're going to go to closing thoughts from each of our fabulous panelists, and we'll start with Alyssa.
I want to say thank you so much for having me. It was a great experience. And I hope that everybody remembers that none of the skills that you learn, no matter what your position is, you can always take it to a different position. Sometimes, depending on what's going on in your life, it might be a particular season, and you might outgrow a position, and that's okay. And to be brave and to reach out to your fellow colleagues, maybe a mentor, volunteer. I know Buckles has a lot of professional development opportunities. Everybody is very helpful, always ask questions. And like I said, nothing that you learn is going to be wasted. You might think that all the work you put in might have been for nothing, but sometimes when you're stuck in the forest, you can't like really see everything. But I promise it'll all work out okay.
What a positive closing statement. Thank you so much. Great advice. Dawn, how about you?
I'll start with my positive and then I'll end with my negative. I always tell my staff, we get to help people change their stars. That's what we get to do for a living, whether we're helping somebody relive a romance or learn how to spell, you know what I mean, and get their alphabet books. That's what we get to do. So I think we have to always keep an eye on that, that it's an extremely beautiful thing that libraries are and that we get to do. All the jobs aren't fun, but they are. The other thing for people who want to move up and become administrators, please learn as much as you can about the actual library work first. I've seen a lot of directors who spent a year being a librarian and went into administration. And, you're not going to understand cataloging and circulation and book selection and, all the things. So get as much experience as you can because the way that you're going to, getting a job is one half of the battle. Getting your staff and your board of trustees to buy into your vision is another whole battle. And the more you can walk the walk with your staff, the easier it's going to be. The last part that's a little bit negative is at the beginning, don't always think that you're going to get the plum position. Sometimes you're going to have to take positions that are a little bit gnarly. Like I said, Teton told me, look, this is the way it is here. But it was still rewarding. I learned a lot. They learned a lot. And we did good things. But just be prepared for that.
I think that's just being realistic, Dawn. That's not negative. I think that's great advice.
Thank
And
you.
sometimes you just got to say yes to what's in front of you to get to the next thing. Great. Thank you. All right. Mike, final thoughts from Mike.
Um, I guess final thought would be if you feel stuck at your library where you are, or just not in your library, but like in your career path. Like it was already mentioned that like well, obviously your consortium Buckles has a lot of opportunities, but even on the state level, like you don't need to go to NJLA necessarily, like but get to know other librarians elsewhere, get your name out there. If you want to become a children's librarian and there's no path forward at your current library, do story times at another library. Like, just get,
Yeah.
when people start to know who you are, opportunities will open up for you elsewhere or in your current position once they realize, oh, hey, this person has no notoriety. Like, it's just getting your foot in the door, however way you can.
Thanks, Mike. That's really helpful and great points there. Last but not least, Patrick, any closing thoughts for these lovely folks?
Um, I don't know. I think I already talked more than I was planning to, but I think I'm the librarianship. It's all kind of a be ready for anything kind of situation. I think people have certain expectations about the kinds of things we do all day here, but Richmond can be pretty wild sometimes, and you find yourself troubleshooting a lot of unexpected interpersonal issues, or like you
Yeah.
said, building maintenance, like you might just spend your day, because all the elevators are broken all at once and trying to calm people down, because that happened last week. Like all three of them were just
Oh,
so you never know what you're gonna get, I guess.
be prepared for everything and anything, right?
Hmm.
I think that's a great note to end on. So I want to once again thank our amazing panel, Alyssa, Dawn, Mike, and Patrick. You guys were awesome. Give yourselves a round of applause. You were just so great. We're so lucky to have you. I want to thank my fabulous co-chair, Catherine, our Buckles Lamp Committee liaison, Darlene, who Darlene, where did your beautiful face go? You've been missing. You've just been there she is. She's just been a black rectangle this whole time. The rest of the wonderful LAMP committee. We had several members logged on today. And I do want to remind everyone that there will be an anonymous evaluation emailed to you. Please fill it out. It really helps the LAMP committee and all the committees create programming that is helpful to the Buckles community for professional development. I do want to mention, is it Catherine, help me remember. It's going to be spring 2027 that we offer the supervisory training
Yes.
course again. So that was something that Alyssa mentioned. So that's usually a 4-session series. It's an excellent series. It's conducted at Bergen Community College. The cost is really low for how many hours of professional development you receive, and it's a program for supervisors or people who are looking to become supervisors. So look out for that. And other things the LAMP committee works on, the salary survey is something that we work on every summer. So sorry in advance, directors, you're going to be getting that soon to fill out, but we really use that to make sure that there is transparency and parity across all of our system-wide libraries. And we're just so thankful to be a small part of this consortium and doing work that hopefully is helpful to people. So those surveys are really helpful for us to make sure that we're staying on task. So with that, I'm going to end our session. We are 17 minutes early. Look at us. I will ask our panelists and LAMP committee members to stay on for just another minute just to say goodbyes. But everyone else, thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at other events in the future. So thanks again and have a great day.